In the heart of Lagos, Nigeria, where the bustling city life mingles with deeply rooted traditions and legends, lies a tale that has haunted many boarding schools across the region. This is the story of Madam Koi Koi, a vengeful spirit whose distinct sound of high-heeled shoes echoes through the corridors at night. The year was 1997, and I had just started my first term at Queen's College, one of the most prestigious all-girls boarding schools in Lagos. The school, with its colonial-era buildings and sprawling grounds, had an air of both grandeur and mystery. Despite the school's reputation for academic excellence, it was also known for something far more sinister: the legend of Madam Koi Koi. It was a humid evening in late September when the senior girls first told us about Madam Koi Koi. We were gathered in the dormitory, the dim light from a single bulb casting long shadows on the walls. The air was thick with anticipation as the seniors shared the tale. Years ago, began Funmi, one of the senior prefects, there was a beautiful teacher here. Her name was Madam Koi Koi. She was known for her impeccable dressing and her signature red high-heeled shoes, which made a distinct koi koi sound as she walked down the hallways. Funmi paused, letting the eerie silence build before continuing. But she was also very strict and, some say, cruel. One day, she slapped a student so hard that the girl's ear bled. The next day, Madam Koi Koi was mysteriously fired. On her way out, she swore that she would have her revenge. That night, the sound of her shoes echoed through the school, and she was found dead in a ditch outside the gates. Ever since, her spirit has roamed the school, seeking vengeance. If you hear the sound of koi koi at night, it means she's close. Never open your door. The tale sent shivers down our spines, and that night, I found it hard to sleep. The oppressive heat did little to ease my growing anxiety, and every creak and groan of the old building seemed amplified in the darkness. I tried to dismiss the story as just another way for the seniors to scare the new students, but deep down, a part of me couldn't shake the fear. A few weeks passed without incident, and life at Queen's College settled into a routine. But one night, as I lay in bed, I heard it. A distant, rhythmic koi koi sound, faint at first but gradually growing louder. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained to hear. Was it my imagination? The sound drew nearer, echoing through the silent corridors. I glanced around the dormitory. The other girls were fast asleep, oblivious to the noise. The sound grew louder, the unmistakable koi koi of high-heeled shoes resonating through the hallway. My curiosity got the better of me, and despite the warnings, I slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the door. I opened it just a crack and peered into the dimly lit corridor. The koi koi sound was now deafening, reverberating off the walls. There, at the far end of the hallway, I saw her. A figure dressed in a flowing red gown, her back turned to me. The long, dark hair cascaded down her shoulders, and on her feet were the infamous red high-heeled shoes. My breath caught in my throat as I watched her. She began to turn, and I quickly shut the door, my heart racing. I stumbled back to my bed, pulling the covers over my head. The koi koi sound passed by my door, slow and deliberate. I could feel her presence just outside, and I held my breath, praying she wouldn't enter. Minutes felt like hours, but eventually, the sound faded into the distance. I lay awake for the rest of the night, too terrified to sleep. The next morning, I confided in my friend Ada, who had been at the school for a year. "Chinik, you heard her?" Ada exclaimed, her eyes wide with fear. I thought it was just a story to scare the juniors. But if you heard it, then maybe it's true. Word of my encounter spread quickly, and the atmosphere in the school grew tense. That night, we all huddled together, whispering prayers and clutching our rosaries. The koi koi sound didn't return, but the fear lingered, a constant reminder of the vengeful spirit that haunted our school. The following weeks were uneventful, but the legend of Madame Koi Koi hung over us like a dark cloud. One night, as we were preparing for bed, the power went out, plunging the dormitory into darkness. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of our nervous whispers. Suddenly, the koi koi sound echoed through the corridor again, louder and more menacing than before. Panic set in, and we huddled together, too afraid to move. The sound stopped outside our door, and we could hear the faint rustling of fabric as if she was standing right there. "Don't open the door," Funmi whispered urgently. "Whatever you do, don't open the door." The air was thick with fear, and we could barely breathe. The doorknob rattled, and we stifled our screams. After what felt like an eternity, the sound moved away, fading into the distance. We sat in silence, too terrified to speak. The next morning, we found out that one of the junior girls, Amina, had gone missing. Her bed was empty, and there were no signs of a struggle. The staff conducted a thorough search, but she was never found. Whispers of Madame Koi Koi's vengeance spread like wildfire, and the fear of the koi koi sound became deeply ingrained in our minds. Years have passed since my time at Queen's College, but the memory of that night remains vivid. The legend of Madame Koi Koi continues to haunt the halls of the school, a chilling reminder of the power of folklore and the mysteries that lurk in the shadows. Whenever I hear the click of high-heeled shoes, I can't help but shiver, remembering the vengeful spirit that once walked the corridors of my old school.
In the heart of Ibadan, Nigeria, where the city buzzes with life and the ancient traditions still hold sway, there exists a legend that chills the bones of even the bravest souls. This is the story of the Bush Baby, a creature of folklore that lurks in the shadows, waiting to ensnare the unsuspecting. It was the year 2003, and I had just moved to Ibadan for university. The University of Ibadan, with its sprawling campus and historic buildings, was a world unto itself. As a newcomer, I was eager to explore every corner of my new environment. Little did I know that my curiosity would lead me to an encounter I would never forget. One evening, after a long day of lectures, my friends and I decided to take a walk through the nearby Agodi Gardens, a lush park known for its serene beauty. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the landscape. We wandered along the winding paths, laughing and chatting, enjoying the cool breeze that rustled through the trees. As darkness began to fall, we found ourselves deep within the park, far from the main entrance. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of the city faded into a distant hum. We were about to head back when we heard it, a faint, high-pitched cry, like that of a baby. It was a sound that cut through the night, both eerie and haunting. "Killed. Did you hear that?" Funmi, one of my friends, asked, her voice trembling. "Maybe it's a baby," I suggested, though a sense of unease had settled over me. The cry came again, closer this time, and we could see a small figure in the distance, just beyond the trees. "Who go carry baby come this kind place for night?" Femi, another friend, muttered, his eyes wide with fear. We hesitated, torn between curiosity and a growing sense of dread. The figure moved, and the cry came again, more insistent. Against my better judgment, I stepped forward, my friends following reluctantly. As we drew closer, we could make out the shape of a small child, no more than 3 or 4 years old, sitting on the ground. The child looked up at us, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Its eyes were wide and dark, too large for its small face, and there was something unsettling about its expression. The child reached out a hand, and the cry came again, piercing the night. "We need to help," I said, though my voice was shaky. I took another step forward, but Femi grabbed my arm. "Don't be mumu, that no be normal pikin," he whispered urgently. "No bush baby." The term sent a jolt of fear through me. I had heard the stories growing up, tales of a creature that mimicked the cry of a baby to lure people into the forest, only to attack them. The bush baby was said to be a spirit, a creature of the night that fed on the souls of the unwary. The child, if it was indeed a child, continued to cry, its eyes fixed on us. I felt an overwhelming sense of pity and fear. Funmi, always the bravest among us, took a step forward, but Femi pulled her back. "Don't touch him," he warned. "We go run." We turned to leave, but the child's cry grew louder, more desperate. It was a sound that tugged at the heartstrings, making it difficult to walk away. But the fear in Femi's eyes and the stories of the bush baby kept us moving. As we hurried back through the park, the cries followed us, echoing through the trees. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of the main road, the lights of the city bringing a sense of relief. We stood there, catching our breath, the cries finally fading into the distance. What if it was just a lost child? Funmi asked, her voice tinged with guilt. "Better safe than sorry," Femi replied, his face still pale. "You no fit trust things for this kind place at night." That night, I couldn't sleep. The cries haunted my dreams, and the image of the child's wide, dark eyes lingered in my mind. The next day, we heard rumors around the campus. A few students claimed to have seen the same figure, always at dusk, always accompanied by that eerie cry. Some said it was a trick of the light, a figment of the imagination. But others, those who knew the old stories, were not so sure. Days turned into weeks, and the incident faded into a distant memory, a tale to be told over late-night study sessions. But the fear remained, a subtle reminder of the things that lurk in the shadows of Ibadan. One evening, a few months later, I found myself alone in the library, studying for an upcoming exam. The campus was quiet, the usual hustle and bustle subdued by the late hour. As I packed my books and prepared to leave, I heard it again, a faint, high-pitched cry, drifting through the open window. My blood ran cold, and I felt a sense of déjà vu. I closed my eyes, hoping it was just my imagination. But the cry came again, louder this time, echoing through the empty halls. I hurried out of the library, my footsteps echoing in the silence. As I stepped outside, I saw a figure standing under a street lamp, its small frame illuminated by the soft glow. The child looked up at me, its eyes wide and dark, and the cry pierced the night once more. I ran, not stopping until I reached the safety of my dormitory. My heart pounded in my chest, and I struggled to catch my breath. The legend of the bush baby was no longer just a story, it was real, and it was here. In the weeks that followed, more sightings were reported. The cries became a familiar sound at dusk, a chilling reminder of the creature that lurked in the shadows. The students of the University of Ibadan learned to be cautious, to avoid the park at night, and to never, ever respond to the cries of the bush baby. Years later, as I tell this story, I can still hear the echo of that eerie cry in my mind. The legend of the bush baby is a testament to the power of folklore, a reminder of the mysteries that lie hidden in the heart of Ibadan. And though I have moved on, the memory of that night remains with me, a haunting reminder of the things that go bump in the night.